We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft.
12 miles to the east of Denver is the scene of a shooting. Police there were called shortly after midnight.
What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing.
What are some of the easiest ways that you can prove that the Earth is round? Because apparently this is something that we're debating. I have no idea why.
I can tell you why. For starters, the agency that you represent being the main source of information we get about the outer space and the shape of our Earth has been caught thousands upon thousands of times defrauding the public with blatantly, painfully obvious manipulated video and images time and time again. Not to mention no measurable curvature over large bodies of water. I mean, that should be a red flag to anybody, right?
That's a hard thing for me to even start talking about because there are so many proofs that the Earth is round, it's difficult to know where to start.
So many proofs that you aren't actually going to mention any in this video.
And it's not okay to think that the Earth is flat. This is not a viable argument. I have friends who have been on the International Space Station. They have orbited the Earth once every 90 minutes. You know, I have had personal experience with people that have been up in space and can see with their own eyes that the Earth is round.
Translation, I haven't actually seen anything with my own eyes, though I have been told by other people that's the way it is, therefore it must be.
And of course, we've taken all these amazing pictures from space. They're so beautiful, all those pictures of the Earth.
Oh yeah, I mean, the people you have working for you are really handy with Photoshop. They are masters with the clone tool. Trust me, I've seen the patterns in the clouds. You really know what you're doing out there.
So I don't really know what's going on right now.
At least we agree on something.
But I will tell you that this is one of the things I really enjoyed teaching my own astronomy class about, because there are proofs all around you. It is not difficult to know that the Earth is round. In fact, people have known this for way more than 2,000 years.
Just because you tell a couple of stories about a few ancient Greeks running around thinking the Earth was a globe, which, considering the lack of evidence, as far as I'm concerned, mainstream science invented, doesn't mean that the general public of those times thought that the Earth was a globe. In fact, that is verifiably false when you take into consideration the fact that the first globe, terrestrial globe, wasn't made until 1492.
The ancient Greeks actually had a number of really elegant, wonderful proofs that the Earth was a sphere. So let's start from the simple to the slightly more complicated. One of the things you can see yourself with a pair of binoculars is if you actually go out to a lake and there are boats on that lake.
Oh no, don't do it.
The farther away a boat is, the more the bottom of the boat will disappear and you'll basically just see the mast of the boat.
She's doing it.
And as a boat goes farther and farther away, the last thing you will see is the very top of the mast of that boat. And that's because the boat is actually going over the horizon that's curved. And that means that as it goes farther and farther away, you see less and less of the bottom of it and more of the top of that. You can see that with binoculars, by an ocean, by a lake. It's really easy. That wouldn't happen if the Earth were flat. You would simply see the boat getting smaller and smaller and smaller as it went farther away, but you'd be able to see the whole thing with the same proportions.
Do we really see ships going over the curve? Now, if we do, that's going to start to happen at between 3 and 4 miles. I mean, at 4 miles, you should be losing 10 feet worth of a ship. At 5 miles, it'd be almost 17 feet worth of the ship. 6 miles, 24, 7, almost 33 feet, and so forth.
Now, if you look in the background, you can probably see some buildings back there. That is not a mirage, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But a mirage would be distorted. It would have a haze effect or a watery look. And it's also not any kind of superior mirage in which things are lifted up above the water. Those buildings are just the outlines of the buildings that are actually there. So if you start looking underneath the red section of the tanker, you'll see a little white sliver showing up. And if you notice, that is just the reflection from the part of the boat, the bridge, above it. So if it's reflecting, what would it be reflecting on? It appears to be reflecting on air, doesn't it? But we know that's not what's happening. It's actually reflecting off the water, which has taken the exact color of the sky. You'll see now that the white bridge section has almost become the same color as the sky. It no longer has a lot of the markings that it had before. In fact, I think we'll see it here within the next 20 seconds turn into the sky.
This is a great shot right here showing that the boat didn't go over any curve, and it's way out there, and it's going straight out into atmospheric distortion. The density of the atmosphere between the boat and the viewer is getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and it's causing all kinds of atmospheric distortions, and you're starting to get some mirage effects right there. But that's easily out to 4 miles, if not a little bit past that. Never did I see anything disappear to the camera's eye. To my eye, regular eye, sure, you can imagine the illusion of the hull disappearing first, but not through the camera. So as you can see, here's a still frame of the boat way out there, at least 4 miles out. I should be losing 10 feet of the ship, but I mean, even though it's distorted with the mirage there, you're not seeing 10 feet of that ship missing. You're not seeing just the top of the ship. You're seeing the whole thing out there. Now it's all wavy and distorted, but it's there. I'm going to suggest that what we're seeing is the same exact effect that we see when a car disappears wheels first into a mirage. Now that may be the case, but let's go a little deeper. Now here's the other issue. People who think ships are disappearing over the curve in 3, 4, 5 miles distance, it's got to work both ways. I mean, if we're on a ball, then when the ship is going away from you on the, let's say, the z-axis, going from you to a point away from you, and it's rolling over the ball in 3 to 5 miles, then you should have the exact same effect looking left to right on the x-axis. You should be seeing ships rolling up to the top of the ball and rolling down on the lateral x-axis. I mean, if it's a ball, they got to be rolling both ways, away from you and side to side. We never see that, though. You can go to the beach and do a panoramic shot and put a parallel line over it, and from end to end, and this is a lot more than just 5 miles, there's no perceived curvature here. None. Flat as a pancake.
Now, another way that you can tell that we're on a sphere is to think about how there's something called the tropics on the Earth.
Oh, there's something called the tropics. Damn it! Did anybody think about the tropics, man? We forgot about the tropics, man. Damn it.
And the tropics are places near the equator of the Earth where sometimes the sun is overhead in the sky. And this was actually something that the Greeks used not only to prove that the Earth was round about 2,000 years ago, but they actually measured the circumference of the Earth accurate to within just a couple percent. 2,000 years ago, we've known that the Earth was round.
Third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
There was a really brilliant Greek scientist called Eratosthenes. And Eratosthenes noticed that there was a town called Syene, and on a certain date, the sun would actually shine straight down to the bottom of a well. That meant the sun was directly overhead. You could look down a well and see the sun shining back at you. And on the very same date, farther away in the city of Alexandria, that didn't happen. The sun was not directly overhead. It was a slight angle. And all that Eratosthenes did was he measured the difference in the angle of the sun. It was straight overhead in Syene. In Alexandria, it was a little bit less than overhead. And he rationed that that change in angle from one city to another was probably indicative of us being on a curved surface. And you could make all kinds of measurements, even between those two cities, and see that the angles were different. The sun was at a different place in the sky. Using this, he actually measured the circumference of the Earth, and he got it right 2,000 years ago. So another really simple proof is that on any given date, at different cities and different places around the world, the sun is at different angles in the sky. That wouldn't happen if the Earth wasn't round.
Are you sure about that?
There was a famous experiment conducted by Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes. And the 2 cities in the old world, and one of them, they knew that at 12 noon on a particular day of the year, that the sun was directly overhead and you could see the bottom of a well.
Oh, okay.
You don't run around looking at the bottoms of wells.
No.
Because the light doesn't
get down there.
Doesn't get down there.
How can we use this observation to see if Earth's surface is curved? We needed another well. Turns out we can't see the bottom of both wells at the same time. What might explain this? Well, there are 2 possible explanations. First, we could have a flat Earth with the sun that's small and close by, so that the light hits the second well at an angle.
The sun is at different angles in the sky. That wouldn't happen if the Earth wasn't round.
First, we could have a flat Earth.
That wouldn't happen if the Earth wasn't round.
For once, Neil, you actually did me a favor. It's nice when you can use the bullshitters to debunk the bullshitters, right? They can't keep up with their own lies these days.
Then there are some other proofs that are a little more obscure, but they're actually really lovely. And one is to observe what happens during a lunar eclipse. Now, a lunar eclipse happens when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. The moon actually goes dark. In fact, if you've seen one, you can actually see the Earth's shadow go across the moon. And when the moon is entirely in the Earth's shadow, the moon looks kind of dark and even kind of red colored. It's really, really beautiful. What's happening in that case is that the sun is on one side of the Earth. The Earth is in the middle, and it's casting a shadow. The Earth is casting a shadow on the moon. And as the shadow moves across the moon, you'll notice that the shadow is curved, it's round. So something like the sun that's bigger than the Earth and is able to cast a shadow of the Earth on the moon can actually show you the shape of the Earth.
Ooh, I think I'm following in this case your superior intellect, where you describe a sun being on one side of the Earth and the moon being on the darker side of the Earth, thus the shadow of the Earth is being cast onto the surface of the moon, then causing the lunar eclipse. That makes a lot of sense. If you then discount the over 52 recorded eclipses where the sun has been in the sky at the same time as a lunar eclipse has been happening, which you refer to as a selenelian, which you have no valid explanation for. It's interesting that you don't include that in here.
So people have known that the Earth is spherical for thousands of years. It's not okay to say that the Earth is flat. This is some sort of strange denial. I don't know where it comes from. And it's something where I keep getting this question. We really need to put this question to bed because we've known the Earth is a sphere for a long time. I actually said this to somebody and I couldn't believe they'd never thought of it. That, you know, with binoculars you can see planets. You can see Saturn and Jupiter. You can see Mars with a telescope, the sun, the moon. Everything else you see in the solar system is a sphere.
Yes. Sound logic we hear from these people over and over again, right? Everything in the sky is circular, therefore the thing that we walk upon must be a ball. I mean, not to mention the fact that everything you see in the sky is not circular. I mean, just look at some of the stars. They take all different types of shapes and sizes and colors even. But that aside, everybody's seen the meme, right? You know, globe Earth society logic. You see all the pool balls on the table, therefore the pool table must be a ball.
Simple logic allows us to assume that if everything else, if all the other planets, which also have moons, if everything else in the sky is a sphere, why wouldn't the Earth be?
I mean, it's just such simple logic. We know that all cats are animals, so logically all animals are cats. This is logic, folks.
This is the concrete sound logic we get from these people who are looking down their nose at you. Looking down their nose, pretending that they are superior intellectually because they are giving you bullshit explanations. I mean, I would be more infuriated at these ridiculous, asinine arguments if it didn't show the no legs they have to stand on. If it didn't show that they cannot refute flat Earth with facts. They have to bullshit. They have to squirm around it with nonsense and just hope that everybody listening doesn't care enough to pay attention. Red Flag Media, I am out.